5A 3, 5A3. Amar Rav Avin, the bottom of on the right side of the page. Amar Rav Avin, Amar Rav Yochanan. Rav Avin says in the name of Rav Yochanan, Hichnis Yado L'tochot Lechaveiro. If someone, you have the Gemara, Hichnis Yado, a person put his hand into the courtyard of his friend. And you're standing, let's say, you're standing in public property. And you put your hand into your friend's courtyard. Your friend's courtyard is private property. Morning, Simon. If you put your hand into your friend's courtyard, it's a private property. So we know if you would take something from your friend's property, pick up something from your friend's property, and move it outside. Let's say he had a food in his property, and you took out, let's say he had some cake, and you took out a piece of cake from his property into public property, and you placed it in public property, we said that would be a violation of Shabbat. Here, what you do, you put your hand into your friend's property, v'kibel make shamim, and you received rainwater in your hand. So let's say it was raining, and rain came down. It was a rainy day, and you put your hand out, and you received it, and let's say you put your hand like this, and you got some certain amount of water in your hand, and then after you got the amount of water in your hand, you took the water out and you pasted it down in public property. So what is the status? Was there a violation of Shabbat that he carried from private to public? Would he and therefore, if there was a violation, but he did not know, Rabbi, I didn't know I can't do that on Shabbat, so would he have to bring a karma chatat, a sin offering, for violating the Shabbat unintentionally? So that is the Gemara's question. Sorry, that's the statement of Avin Rabbi Yochanan, that if you went ahead and you received rainwater and you took it out, you are liable. He has to bring a karma chatat, a sin offering, for that's creating the Shabbat. So the Gemara says, the Gemara challenges, he should not be chayav. Maskefula Rav Zera. Rav Zera says, we had earlier in our Mishnah, if you recall, if the poor man places his hand inside and the balabayit puts food into the poor man, puts food into the poor man's hand, and then the poor man takes the food out from private to public, we said that since the poor man did not pick up the food himself, it was placed in his hand, so that's not called an akira. That's not called that he uprooted the item. Remember we said on Shabbat, to violate Shabbat, you have to do both an akira, the Simon is showing us, picking up, and hanacham, placing down. But since he didn't pick up, when you put something in my hand, that's not called I picked it up. I didn't uproot the item. You uprooted the item. It's true, I took the item out from after you put it in my hand, I moved it outside and I put it down in public property, but I did the hanacha, I did the placing, but I did not do the uprooting. And therefore, we said in the Mishnah, he's not liable for a sin offering because he did not do the uprooting. So too, the Gemara is asking, if I put my hand, I'm in public property, and I extend my hand to private property, and the rain fell into my hand, so the heavens placed it in my hand. God placed the rain in my hand. Your intention was my intention was to catch it. It's true my intention was to catch it. But the fact is that I did not take the rain from a resting spot and uproot the rain. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Rabbi.
We're discussing a new case that a guy went ahead and he's at public property and he extends his hand into someone else's courtyard and it's raining and the rain goes onto his hand and he cups up his hand like this, let's say, and he takes the rain out and he puts it down in public property. And the Gemara is understanding. I mean, the Gemara, the rabbi just said, if you went ahead and you received rainwater and you and you took it out, you're obligated. There's a
So it's
violation.
it's with intention.
It's with intention to take it out from private to
Right.
public. And then the Gemara challenge, it says, how could that be? How could that be the meaning of the rabbi's statement that he actually just, that's the case? Meaning the rabbi made the statement, the guy moves his hand into private property and he received rainwater. Now, those words that he received rainwater is vague. How did he receive the rainwater? What's the case? How he received the rainwater? We're going to see what the Gemara at the end is going to conclude. At this point, the Gemara is taking it literally. He just stuck his hand out. It's raining. He cupped his hand. He caught the rain and he put it out and brought it outside the public property. And then so there's a violation. It went from private to public.
The cupping the hand's the problem.
But remember, we said the hand. We said is considered, even though it's not 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim. We said the hand is considered a place of, of uprooting from. And it's also the hand. Yes.
There's a difference though. If your hand just gets wet from rain and you go from one place to another, it cannot be carried.
Okay, so
when you cup your hand and you collect rain, then that sounds different.
Okay, so somehow he collected a certain amount of rain, but it's also interesting to note on Shabbat, when it comes to carrying, we'll learn, let's say if it's food, there's a certain amount of food in order to carry in order to be liable. So I would think it must probably rain. It must be a certain amount of rain that's called of use, of significance, that has purpose. Because if a guy goes in on Shabbat and he pulls, let's say he has a hair, he picked a little piece of hair. He has a piece of hair. Let's say he found or anything that's so insignificant, and he carries that out on Shabbat. Or for instance, a person on Shabbat would go ahead and carry, let's say, this outside with intent. I have to look at the Gemara. If it's so small, it has no use, that's not going to be something that he's going to be obligated. If a guy carries intentionally a crumb of food, he's not going to be obligated for. It has to be something that has purpose or whatever.
It can get stuck on the bottom of his shoe.
Right, okay, but the point is whatever the amount of rainwater that it sounds like it's not a significant amount that would require. If a person would intentionally take a cup of water outside, how much water would a person need to take out in order to be in violation? How much he has to carry? We have to see this way. Stay tuned for the Gemara on that. But let's say that's not the issue here. It will meet the requirement.
The cup's a problem.
That's true. So I'm saying, but let's say in a case that the amount of water that would be in it. Let's say if there would be a situation that he would not be obligated for the cup for whatever the reason, but let's say the cup has a hole in it, and let's say it might not be. Let's say if it might be not be considered that it's a real status of a cup of significance, whatever it might be. But there was a certain amount of rain that came out with him, so in that case, so here now we're saying he took it from private, he moved it to public. He should be, and Rabbi Yochanan says he's chayav. But the Gemara's question is, but he did not uproot the rain. He did not uproot the item because it was placed in his hand by God, by the heavens. The same way, if you put your hand, if a poor person on the outside places his hand in private property, and he doesn't take from the hand of the balabayit, he just receives the balabayit, put it in his hand, and then he moves it out, he's not liable for that.
No uprooting. That's very good.
It's not called, we said it's not called uprooting. So too, the Gemara's question is, what's the difference? The heavens put it on in your hand. You didn't put it in. You didn't uproot you didn't go to the heaven to pick the water out from the heavens. You didn't go, the rain came into your hand. So that's the Gemara's challenge. How could the rabbi say he's chayav? How could the rabbi say he's violating Shabbat when he did not uprooted himself? That's going to be the Gemara's question. What's the difference if his friend put something in his hand, or if the heavens put it in the hand? He didn't do the uprooting. He didn't uproot it. It was uprooted by the heavens. The heavens uprooted the item. So the Gemara says, okay. Lo tema v'kibel. Don't say when Rabbi Yochanan says that he received the rain. Because if he don't understand Rabbi Yochanan, that means literally he received it, it was placed in his hand. Usually when you're a receiver, right, a wide receiver in football, right, what are you doing, wide receiver? You receive. You didn't uproot the item. You didn't, the guy, when you take it from the sometimes the quarterback hands you the ball, or you take it from the quarterback. But here we received it. You will not be chayav. You did not uproot it. Ella, you have to say Rabbi Yochanan. What Rabbi Yochanan said, the kalat. Kalat means that you gathered. That you when the rain was coming down, the Gemara's understanding, the rain is coming down, and you went ahead and you hit the rain. You hit the rain from that was coming down from, and he hit it into the other hand. And therefore you, by hitting the rain, you moved the rain, you uprooted the rain from, and moved it to the other hand. And that's how the Gemara's understanding. So therefore, good morning, Nathan. And therefore, since you uprooted it, the Gemara says that you should be chayav for that, because you hit the rain from one hand. The rain was coming down. You hit it into the other hand. So the Gemara says, okay, true. Maybe you went ahead and you hit the rain, and you're the one. It's not that you just received the rain. You were active to move the rain went from one into the other hand. But the Gemara says, akira me'al gabe mokam da'abra. Where was the rain? The rain was in the air. You moved the rain. I moved the rain from the air. It wasn't a place of 4 tvachim by 4 tvachim. It was from the air. So in order to be chayav Shabbat, there's no uprooting of the item from a place that's 4 tvachim by 4 tvachim. Akira mal gabe arbo v'lekat. You need a akira. You need an uprooting of an item from a place that's 4 tvachim by 4 tvachim, and here you don't have that. I was wondering, why does the Gemara ask the question? It's not resting, because it's coming down, and you go ahead and you hit it. It's also not close. I was wondering why the Gemara doesn't ask that point. But the Gemara asked the point that it's not at 4 tvachim by 4 tvachim. You moved it. Let's say if the same way, if you move an item from a ledge, like we said, the ledge is not 4 tvachim by 4 tvachim. Hitting the rain from the ear, it's not from a place of 4 tvachim by 4 tvachim. So Amar Rabba Chia Berei, the Rav Huna, Rav Chia, the son of Huna. We're now on 5A4.
True. If there's a ball in the air and you hit it.
I'm saying that the same thing, the ball in the air and you hit it. If someone throws the ball, right, and you hit it, he did Akira, he uprooted it, but then if you hit it from one hand to the other, so you now, but still you'll have the same problem. Where did you take it from? You took it from the air, and it's not a place of 4 tvachim of 6 to 15 inches by 15 inches.
Also more than 10.
Might be more than 10 from the, right, we'll get to that issue, right? So the Gemara says, Amar Rav Chia Berei de Rav Huna, Kigon shekolad me'al gabe kotel. We're talking about when the rain was, the water was coming down on a wall, and you went ahead, and the wall is 4 tvachim. The wall has it's 4 tvachim by 4 tvachim. It's 15 inches by 15 inches, and you gather the rain when it's coming down the wall. But obviously the Gemara is going to challenge this. It's true, the wall is 4 tvachim by 4 tvachim, but the rain didn't rest on the wall. The rain is coming down the wall. So the Gemara is going to say, what do you mean? Al gabe kotel nami v'lo nach. The rain didn't rest. And if it didn't rest, then it's not called you can't be chayav on Shabbat. It's not called you uprooted something. To uproot something means something is stationary and you uproot it. The Gemara says, but Kedamar Rava, we have a case, the Kotel Mishupah, a wall that's not straight, and the wall is slanted, and something that falls on it because of its slant, it could go ahead and collect. It could collect on the Gemara's thinking at this point that it would collect. It would collect over there a certain amount. And that's also called and then you collected it from there. That would be a chiyuv. That would be a call that you uprooted. The Gemara is also going to challenge this. Now, where is the Gemara is also going to say? So at the end of the day, it's not really going to, not they're going to rest. Let's see what the Gemara says. Where do we find this story of Rava talks about this type of wall that's not straight? And that the item resting. We're talking about a wall that's so therefore, because let's say it's wide on the bottom, it's wider on the bottom and narrow on top, so it's on the slant. So therefore, it's going to collect for a moment or two over here. It's going to stay stationary a little bit. So the Gemara says we're now on Hayam base 5b 1. You were in the time of the Gemara, all the written svarim, all the things that they wrote, they were written like our Megillot, like scrolls, like our Megillot, like the scrolls that we have, like similar to our Sefer Torah. It was similar to a Sefer Torah that we have, and you were reading a sefer in the sefer, and you were sitting on the eskupa, and the eskupa is made from, let's say, wood or stone. That's like by under the door. It's wider than the door. It sticks out. It's like a threshold. You're sitting on like the stool, like the threshold of the house. And it's like it's higher than the ground. It's like a step. So the step outside that step, being because it has a certain height, it's not exactly, the public doesn't really walk on that area. Because let's say it's 11 inches high. It's it's at least 3 tvachim high, and therefore it's not flush with the regular public property. It's higher than the ground, right? Because anything that's marked, anything within 3 tvachim, within 11 inches, like the ground itself. But this step, like a step, is higher. It's not considered public property, but it's also not considered private property. And this step, we're going to give a status called a carmelit. A carmelit is a certain area which has similarities, similar to public, because it's right by the public property. But it's not exact, because not everybody would walk on that thing. So that there is laws about a carmelit. You can't carry, just like we speak about an ocean, right? We said an ocean or certain things that also has a status of a carmelit. We're going to see in the Gemara. It's not the common place where people walk. It's not the ocean is not the common area, but it's open for anybody to go. So it has some similarities. But let's say you somehow be right next to an ocean, if you can't take from an ocean, an item from an ocean, and put it into public property, or from public property into an ocean. The rabbis gave that status. It's not a reshut harabim. It's not an easy area for people to travel. It's not a public property that would be on a Torah level, but on a rabbinic level, the rabbis made a fence to say, don't carry from the ocean into public property. Don't carry from the ocean to private property, or private property to the ocean. That we're going to see. And this area as well, this threshold, like a step, would also have a status like this carmelit. So here he is on Shabbat, and he's reading a sefer, and v'nizgalgel hasefer miyodo. He's holding the sefer, he's holding the scroll, but one part of the other part of the scroll, let's say, rolled into public property. Yes, and it rested, and now it's in the other part is stationary in public property. He's holding on to the other end on this step, on this askupa, in this carmelit. Can he go ahead? Right, right. Although here he is, he's lower than 3 tvachim, right? He's higher than 3 tvachim, and now it's within 3 tvachim of the ground. It's resting into the public property. What'd you say? No, part of it, the other half, the other end. Let's say even let's say you can have like a Sefer Torah, you have the other part. You have one. Let's say you have one. So one part you're holding, the other part is in public property. So can he roll it? So what does it say? Go lo epsil. It says he's allowed to go ahead and roll it to him. He's allowed to roll this to him. This part that that curled, and Rashi says the Gemara in Eruvin explains that since even if so here he doesn't go into that point, but he says, why did they allow you to go ahead and roll the other part to you? Because the fact, he says, because even if the whole thing would have fallen out of your hand, right? If the whole thing would have fallen out of your hand and you would bring it back to you, you would not be in violation of Shabbat. Why? Because carrying from public property to a carmelit, to this type of domain, this step, is not a biblical violation. So therefore, the rabbis did not rabbinically forbade you when you're actually holding on to it. Meaning, it's not like this item I'm taking something from public property to a carmelit. I'm still holding on to it, right? I didn't originally tend to let go. I'm still holding on to the item. It's not like I'm taking an item that's resting in public and bringing it to private, because the fact that I'm still holding on to it makes it a certain sense. It's still here in a certain sense. It's still in this area. Good morning, Asaf. It's not completely gone, right? I'm still holding on to it, and therefore the Gemara says in Eruvin we allow, and Rashi explains even better. There's no akira. I'm not uprooting it from the public property, because the fact that I'm holding on to it here on the step. So if I don't have it, if I dropped it, then if I pick it up, I'm uprooting it. But if I am holding on to it still here in the public, in the carmelit, in the step, so therefore there's no I'm not uprooting from a public to bring to this area, because I'm holding on to it here. Therefore, the rabbis did not feel the necessity, the concern to say it's forbidden for you to go ahead and remove and roll the other end to where you are. Is that clear, everybody? Okay. So now the Gemara says, but if there's a different case, what's that, Nathan?
The balls that have tethers. If you're holding on to one end of the tether, and you're a kid and you're playing around and it's Shabbat and you throw the ball, but you're still holding on to the tether, then you could bring it back according to this.
If we're dealing, but that's if we're dealing with a carmelit and a public property. But if you be dealing with private to public, then it'll be different. What? The carmelit is this area. It's a certain space that biblically it's not a problem to carry from public to this space. It's a third category, right? It's a third category. It's not public, it's not private, it's in between. And it gets the status because it has some similarities to a public property, but it doesn't fit the full description of public, so it does not It's not labeled public. It has some similarities as private. I presume, but it's by right by the house. It's by the step of the house. Maybe that's why it's perhaps, it's or it's right.
Not necessarily off
it's
the
not-
property. So, but think about your front step or your front stoop. It's still your property. It's outside your front door, but it isn't yet the sidewalk or the street.
And there's no hedge or something.
Right, and there's nothing surrounding it. Maybe it's like public in a sense, like, right, if you had something in front, right, that would make things differently. Right, right. So the fact that maybe, right, so therefore it fits into this category of this rabbinic domain prohibition, and this area I can't carry from my house into this step because but I can't.
Of your front lawn with no hedge next to public property. Is your front lawn with no hedge and no gates a Carmelite?
I think that might be. I would think it's technically on a Torah level that your front lawn is considered your private property. I don't think that would be.
We had a case yesterday about the front.
Right, we spoke about some,
yard
right.
with
there's nothing in
no
front,
hedge and no.
nothing in front of it. Right, there rabbinically, I would say that was probably is considered private property on a Torah level, but rabbinically the rabbis are concerned that if you're going to carry from your house into that area, you're going to come to carry into public property as well. So we're talking about this threshold, this space is a space rabbinically prohibited to carry. Let's say within this threshold, right? Or public
within the Carmelite.
No, the public. I'm saying the rabbis said, let's talk about an ocean, and then we have to apply the ocean to this threshold. The rabbi said certain areas, the Gemara is going to say an ocean, a valley. The Gemara is going to say even a valley. That it's not, the public doesn't travel in a valley, let's say, but a valley is open space. It's for the public, people go there. It's not a type of place that everybody. A desert also, I think it's going to be also a desert. We in the desert we were considered Rishut. That was a Rishut Rabbim. It was a desert that the whole Jewish people would travel. But an ocean, we're going to see that space. If you want to carry within the ocean, you're not allowed to carry 4 amot in the ocean. You're not allowed to carry from outside the ocean, from public into the ocean, or from the ocean into the public. You can't carry from private into the ocean. So that ocean, we gave it a status of because it has similarities to public and to private. The rabbi said people get mixed up. If you're going to carry from public into the ocean, people might come to carry from public into a real private property. But just to answer your question, Nathan, I would think that the courtyard in front of the house, that's generally considered a private property. That's but this property. Because that's most probably clearly owned by you. Okay, it's a good question. Right. Part of it. If the morning, this type of column, this step, right? Because this step has to be raised. Because if it's not raised, if it's within 3 tochim of the ground, then it'll be part of public property. So it would seem that this carmelit, this step, is like by the public. It's not owned by me. See, that your courtyard in front of your house, you own it. That's private property. You own it, Nathan. That's yours. Now, whether you have something of 10 tefachim high in front that to people to recognize this is private and not public, that's a different issue. That's a bit, but that's private property. Your front lawn, even if you have nothing in front of the front lawn, who does that belong? It doesn't belong to the city, right? But this step, it sounds like this step, this threshold, is outside your house. It's on public property, but it's raised. It's higher than public property. So it's not common for people to work. So that's what it seems that's why this step, this threshold, it loses the biblical status of public property. Good morning. It loses the status of public property because of this being raised, and it's not flush with the regular public property, but it's not exactly public property. And what do you say? Right, you cannot carry. No, you can't carry from. Exactly. Exactly.
Things resemble public.
Right.
What resembles private?
Why does it resemble private? You're saying the fact that people that it's more it's not the public doesn't go there so much.
Private in the sense that it's not biblical public, but it is the public.
Exactly. I mean, it resembles public because it's right adjacent to the public property, and people might might sometimes go there, but it's not it's not a real public property. Now we're talking about the sefer that fell down. Now we're talking about the sefer. The guy was on this threshold, and I'll read you what they say over here. The stone or block of the threshold extends out from the door towards the street. Okay, the way we explained it, but its top is elevated above the street level, as with a step. So now he's on this. Good morning, Asaf. He's on this threshold. He's reading a sefer. He's reading like our Sifrei Torah. He's reading a Sefer Bereshit written, and he's holding it. It's in a scroll, or let's say Megillat Esther. That's a better example. And he's reading Megillat Esther, and he's holding it, and a roll, the other end rolled from the threshold where he's reading it, which we said is a rabbinic domain, forbidden rabbinic to carry from public to the threshold. But he did not let go of the Megillat Esther. If he would have dropped the Megillat Esther in public property, and he's sitting on the threshold, it's count. But if he would have let go completely of the sefer that he's holding in his hand, that he's reading, and if he dropped the Megillat Esther and it went into public property, and he's sitting on the Carmelit, he's sitting on the threshold, he would not be able to pick up the Megillat Esther and pick because he's taking from public to the Carmelit, to this rabbinically prohibited domain. But that's if he let go of the whole Megillat Esther. But if he did not let go of the whole Megillat Esther, he's still holding one end. He's not uprooting anything because he has it in his hand. So even when he rolls it back, Asaf, he didn't uproot it. So the rabbi said, you could go ahead and roll it back to you. But what about if he would have been sitting on a private property inside a building, and it rolled out into public property? Even though he's holding on to one end, there the rabbis would be more strict. Why? Because over there, if the whole thing would have fallen from his hand into public, and he would bring it back into private, it would be biblical violation. So therefore, the rabbis would be concerned, even when you didn't totally drop it, the rabbis would say, let's make a fence, don't roll it back. Because we're afraid in the case when you totally drop it and you roll it back, you would be violating Torah level. However, when you're on the threshold, which is a carmelit, and therefore, even if you would totally drop it, and bring it back to you, you would not be in violation of the Torah. But if you would be on the threshold, Mark, and the threshold is a rabbinic domain, correct, issue, and if you would drop the whole thing into public, and then you would pick up the whole thing and bring it to the Carmelit, to this threshold, you would not be violating Torah, because it's going from public to a Carmelit. So therefore, the rabbis did not feel the necessity to create this fence when you're holding on to one end. Because if you're holding on to one end, you roll it to you, what are you afraid? He's going to roll it to him when he's not holding on to anything? So if he does that, he would not be violating a Torah law if he would do that. So therefore, the Gemara says, if you were reading the Sefer on the Eskupa, on this threshold, in this carmelit, and v'nisgalgel sefer miyodo, it rolled, go lo etzlo. You can go ahead and roll it to you. You can roll the rest of it. You can, but you providing that you're holding on to one end. Right. So therefore, because if you would let go of the whole thing, there'd be a rabbinic violation only. So therefore, the rabbis did not make a fence when you're actually holding on to part of it. If you're not holding on to anything, when you can roll it to you, because then you're going from public to what? Private. But if you're holding on to one end, the rabbis did not feel the necessity to make any. Only from public. If you let go from public and you're in private, and you would roll it back from public. But no karmelit. If you're in a karmelit, you're in this area, which is a rabbinic domain, you never could be violating Torah. Because if you're sitting here, if you take from public to here, or from here to public, it's a rabbinic violation. Okay, I want to wish everyone a beautiful day. We'll continue tomorrow. Thank you for joining again. Ralph, thank you for being on. Adam, great.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Good to see you. You look great.
Thank you. You too. Good to see you.
All the best. Ralph, all the best. Thank you. Happy Hanukkah. That's right. Let's take it the last day of Hanukkah. Let's enjoy. Take care, Ralph. You too. Thank you for joining. We'll be at 6:45 tomorrow. I don't know if it was, whatever works. Anytime it works.